city manager's comments and update on city operations.
Mayor and council, as mentioned on the agenda, there's one item we would like to provide you a quick update on, and that is in reference to the Hurricane Harvey after action report. But before doing so, there's a couple of items I would like to brief you on. One is in reference to the Hurricane Harvey debris update. As you know, the last month or so, we have been continuing to pick up the storm debris and brush, and we're continuing that process, and I would like to think that we're near completing the entire process. But at this point, the Harvey debris collection schedule continues this week, and this week it's in Area 6, which is bound by South Staples to South Padre Island between Ayers and Costores, and from South Padre Island Drive to south of the Oso Creek to the city limits between Ayers and Weber. And looking ahead to next week, we ask citizens in Area 7A to have their items set out for collection by 7 a.m. And the map is shown on the screen. Also, we will continue to keep everyone informed about the progress of this cleanup effort, and I'm in hopes that by early January, we would have completed this process. And the next item before talking about the Hurricane Harvey after action report is regarding the INFOR transition. The City of Corpus Christi Utility Business Office software transition is currently underway. So until further notice, the utility payments can be made at HEB locations in Corpus Christi through online banking and the standard mail services. This transition will streamline the billing process and continue our commitment to delivering excellent customer service. The city will provide updates and notify customers once the transition is complete. And we truly thank the citizens for their patience during this time. So those are the two items I wanted to share with you. But now I would like for staff to come forward. What you received in your agenda packet is a very thorough report talking about the after action report as well as a presentation. Now, because you received all of this information, the last thing we want to do is to come and give you a presentation on something that you've already seen. So what the fire chief is going to do is give some highlights on that presentation that you already have, followed by Billy Delgado, which will talk about the facilities impacted associated with Hurricane Harvey. And from there, we would like to entertain questions along the way or even afterwards. But our goal is not to give you a long dissertation on information that we've already provided you. So with that, I would like to yield to the Fire Chief Rocha.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rose. Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, Robert Rocha, Fire Chief. Today I will be discussing the after action report regarding the city's response to Hurricane Harvey. And as the city manager stated, included in your city council packet is the after action report as well as a lengthy PowerPoint presentation. And in the interest of time, I will not be going through the entire PowerPoint presentation, but we'll hit on some of the highlights. And I have with me today also many in the city leadership group who played a major part in the preparation, response, and recovery, including Police Chief Mike Markle, Emergency Manager Billy Delgado, and Deputy Chief Richie Quintero. I want to show you slide 2 of the PowerPoint presentation that in mid-August, Emergency Operations Center staff monitored a tropical wave as it approached the Yucatan, and on August 23rd, it became a tropical storm as it entered the Gulf of Mexico. On August 24th, Harvey was classified as a hurricane, and on the 25th, struck the coast of Texas as a Category 4 hurricane. The slide that you have in front of you is slide 6. It's our Emergency Operations Center organizational chart. And early on, the city EOC activated and began the execution of our emergency operations plan. The incident command structure worked well as the operations section, planning section, logistics section, and finance section worked well together in support of the incident. Individual departments such as police, fire, utilities, public works, etc., opened their departmental command post and executed their emergency operations plan. All right. And on Thursday, August 24th, Mayor Joe McComb issued a voluntary evacuation notice for parts of Corpus Christi, and the city evacuation hub was opened at the CC Gym located at the natatorium. And once the storm passed, damage assessment teams conducted an evaluation of the city and the recovery phase began. Numerous structures suffered damage, and elements of city government, including code enforcement, development services, building maintenance, emergency management, finance, and others, started the documentation of damages for consideration for FEMA reimbursements. The city is working very closely with FEMA on the establishment of the damaged building list. A preliminary list is included in your packet for your review. To date, the city has met all FEMA timelines for submittal and continues working on finalizing the list. I would like to turn it over to Billy Galgado to give a summary of what we just spoke about.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Billy Delgado, Emergency Management Coordinator for City of Corpus Christi. The City of Corpus Christi staff did an outstanding job in preparing and responding for Hurricane Harvey. Much of the credit must go to the pre-storm preparation by city departments. The departments have city plans. They submit their disaster action plan to our office, and then we review them each year. Pre-position contracts are also very important. We're already in place during the hurricane season. Overall, the City Emergency Operations Center, our city emergency teams, our city departments perform their roles effectively by sticking to the disaster plan and maintaining communication with our local, state, and federal government agencies, as well as nonprofit groups. Also in our Emergency Operations Center, the communication and coordination with the National Weather Service, Regional Transit Authority, Corpus Christi Independent School District, Red Cross, Salvation Army, and AEP working the event in the EOC was crucial prior, during, and post-Harvey event. Before, during, and after the storm, meetings were held with city manager and executive team to brief them on the situation. Conference calls with the National Weather Service were held in the Emergency Operations Center with city staff and outside agencies. What we did was invite outside agencies so they can come in and get the briefing on what's happening. After each of these briefings, city departments gave outside agencies, provided them with updates on what we are doing to prepare for the emergency at that time. Video conference calls were held with our emergency managers in Nueces County and our state district coordinator leading up to the situation. Once the storm passed, as Chief mentioned, our damage assessment teams went in and started beginning their damage assessments to buildings and critical infrastructures. This important evaluation process continues right now as the city prepares to submit their projects to FEMA. One item notable to report, as the mayor had mentioned, the city of Corpus Christi suffered no losses of life throughout the storm. Many things went well as far as communication, cooperation, and planning before, during, and after the event. Our office is so proud of the way the city staff responded to the hurricanes. There are areas that we will continue to work towards in upcoming months to learn lessons that we learned experiencing through Hurricane Harvey and to prepare for next emergency. Areas of improvements are highlighted through this after action report, and the city will move forward with continuing best practices, making modifications where necessary, and keep the lines of communication open to all.
Thank you very much, Billy. In closing, Mayor and City Council, I just want to reiterate what Billy said, but also show my appreciation to the mayor and the council for support during the hurricane. And with that, Mayor, that concludes the abbreviated after action report summary and we stand open to answer any questions you or the council may have.
All right, any comments or questions by the council? Ms. Opal?
Thank you, Mayor. I have to reiterate that standing here 3 months down the road, I was sitting down there as part of a hearing about a week ago, a little over a week ago, and we are in a much different frame of mind than some of our neighbors, and I do believe that we were prepared if the worst had hit here as well. So hats off for all of the great work. I would like to ask probably Ms. Rose, in part of this after-action communication that perhaps you might want to visit with the council members. I'm not sure that council was included in any kind of after-action discussion or communication, and that feedback from the council probably was not included in anything that is represented in this plan. I would like to request that there be consideration given to opportunities where briefing calls, much the same as investor calls out in the private sector world, where you're not actually having communications and opportunities to visit. This would be in Mr. Reesley's court, I'm sure. He'll probably tell me why we can't do that. But if there are briefing calls that council members do not interact with that call, why council members would not be able to dial into a number and listen to the conversation and get the most updated information as it's occurring. So I think there are some resources out there that have not been explored or evaluated that would enable council members, even if they had evacuated the community, they would not be relying on social media tools to be able to understand what's going on in their own city. The other thing that I would like to go back and really look at, I noticed that, as part of our ongoing recap, we did not get a full presentation on the communication strategies and how effective they were. And reviewing what was in this packet, it seemed like it was pretty heavily reliant upon social media tools. I will tell you that many of the constituents that I have visited with, they're not in that bracket. They don't tweet, they don't Facebook. We're very fortunate that our local media has picked that up, and it seemed to me from my vantage point, because I was more like them than I would like to believe, that the news that we would get just came off the news media. And that's do we have power? Do we have internet? So some of the, at TML, I heard some presentations, and they went right on back to, we need to have some things printed off. When I visited a community meeting that TWIA was following up in Portland, they had door hangers, they had teams that went out, they were very boots on the ground to be able to communicate with folks in a much more traditional way than the social media. And I really didn't see any of that really reflected in the report that we were presented. So I would just challenge that we are probably not done in how we communicate in this day and age, because we get a little hung up on the social media tools. And sometimes in a situation like that, it's really not the best. And I would also, just from my own perspective, and having seen how other communities handle their crisis communication, I would like for us to maybe go and get a little bit more proficient at crisis communication. If you watch what happened in Houston, they would have a much broader group of external resources available that the city was working through or the county was working through. And furthermore, the way that press conferences were planned, every 2 hours there was someone out updating some piece of that information. And when you stop during a crisis time, when you stop one press conference, you tell them when they will see you again. And ours were not quite as structured in that regard. So I think that the communication really reflected that there were no significant gaps, but if things had gone a little bit 15, 20 miles the other way, I don't think we would have been as effective in communicating. So I think we really have to go back and look at that. But the overall opportunity for sharing information as it relates to the council, you may want to just visit and make sure that there's a good communication cadence that we can feed back into and look for opportunities to do it a little better. But having said that, great job.
Mayor, may I provide Ms. Opal some information? I think some of your comments were really on target, and I think there's a lot to learn, especially with the background that you have in communication. Some of the things that we want to work on is that I would love to sit down with you with the permission of the city manager to go over the after-action report and see where there are some other challenges that you saw and work on improving it and get back with staff, and I think we'll have a good work product in the end. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? All right, if not, let me just, from the mayor's perspective, let me say how proud we are of the the chiefs and Billy and all of the folks that were in it, and it goes to show that practice makes perfect, or close to perfect. We don't ever want to say we've made perfection, but we tried to get as close as we could. But practice is boring, but it's awfully rewarding when what you practice is put into play and it turns out well. And I think Corpus Christi, with no fatalities and major injuries, and the recovery has just been outstanding. And so we commend all of the city staff and those in leadership roles and those in leaders not any better than the followers. And the folks that were implementing the programs really stepped up. And from our perspective, we want to thank you very much for all your work. And a lot of times it's all behind the scenes and below the radar screen, but when it's game time, you came with your game face on and you did great. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
So Mayor, before we bring this to a close, one of the areas that you received information on is regarding the list of city facilities that is in need of repair. Now, by December 25th, we must submit to FEMA a scope of every single one of these locations, so that as we repair these areas, we want to follow the FEMA guidelines so that we can attempt to get reimbursed for the work being done. It's going to require that we dip into our fund balances in a lot of the different funds, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to send you something even separate so that you could see what the fund balances are. We really need to come to terms with our urgent and high priority items, and if you notice, we did put a priority on them. We really need to begin to move forward. We cannot afford to wait for FEMA to receive this information. We know in talking to FEMA that because our staff is working with a FEMA representative every day with these items, but we can't afford to wait for FEMA to get these items and then begin to consider whether they want to reimburse us. Some of these areas of high priority, and their city facilities, our assets that really need to be repaired. So one of the things that I actually need from you is the ability to be able to bring something back to you so that we can appropriate some of these dollars in the different funds so that we can begin the process of repairing some of these facilities.
I think you process them and you bring them to us and we'll get it done. On this portion of the FEMA, is it a 70-30 or 80-20? What is their reimbursement?
75, 25.
75-25.
Yes, sir.
Well, but I think you're right. I mean, if there's damage out there, it's not going to get better by neglecting it. So I would assume you've got a program, you try to get it done with, and figure we're going to get 75% reimbursement. We hope we will. I think we will, but you never know. But I mean, if it's a matter of getting the building or facility up and running, we got to get it fixed. I mean, it's
Okay, so we'll
not,
bring
we'll be
something.
sending bond issues to replace it, and that's a whole lot more expensive.
Okay, we'll bring something forward to you.
Maybe not all at once, but you know, a little bit at a time, as quick as we can. All right.
Urgent and priority, high priority will probably be the first ones.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Is that complete to city manager's report?
Yes, sir.